ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की, मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की, पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की, गंगा माई की, जमुना माई की, भक्ति देवी की, श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की, समवेत भक्त वृंद की, श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की, जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे. Glories to the Sambhu devotees. Oh, glories to the Sambhu devotees. Oh, glories to the Sambhu devotees. Oh, glories to the lotus feet of Shishi Guru Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Vrindavan Dham Vrindavan Dham Jaya Krishna Balaram. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Mama Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Good morning to everyone. So today we're reading from Canto number 5, chapter number 1, entitled The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. And today we're reading from text number 21. So I think it's not on the board, it's just prose. So I'll just say the prose and then we'll do the word for word in translation together. Bhagavan api manuna yathavad upakalpita Pachiti Priyavrata Naradayor Avishamam Abhikshmanayor Atmasam Avastanam Avamanasam Kshayam Avyavaritam Pravatayan Agamat. So much harder to read in prose. Okay, so word for word you can repeat after me. Bhagavan, the most powerful Lord Brahma, Api, also, Manuna, by Manu, Yathavat, as deserved, Upakalpita, Apachiti, being worshipped, Priyavrata, Naradayo, in the presence of Priyavrata and Narada, Avisamam, without aversion, Abhishamakshamaanayo, looking on, Atmasam, just suitable for his position, Avasthanam, to his abode, Avagmanasam, beyond the description of mind and words, Kshayam, the planet, Avyavadatam, extraordinarily situated, Pravartayan, departing, Agamat, returned. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. Lord Brahma was then worshipped by Manu, who respectfully satisfied him as well as he could. Priyavrata and Narada also looked upon Brahma with no tinges of resentment. Having engaged Priyavrata in accepting his father's request, Lord Brahma returned to his abode Satyalok, which is indescribable by the endeavour of mundane mind or words. Purport. Manu was certainly very satisfied that Lord Brahma had persuaded his son Priyavrata to take the responsibility for ruling the world. Priyavrata and Narada were also very satisfied. Although Brahma had forced Priyavrata to accept the management of worldly affairs, thus breaking his vow to remain brahmachari and completely engage in devotional service, Narada and Priyavrata did not look upon Brahma with resentment. Narada was not at all sorry that he had been frustrated in making Priyavrata a disciple. Both Priyavrata and Narada were exalted personalities who knew how to respect Lord Brahma. Therefore, instead of looking upon Brahma with resentment, they very feelingly offered him their respect. Lord Brahma then returned to his celestial abode, known as Satyalok, which is described here as being impeccable and being unapproachable by words. It is stated in this verse that Lord Brahma returned to his residence, which is as important as his own personality. Lord Brahma is the creator of this universe and the most exalted personality within it. His lifetime is described in the Bhagavad Gita 8:17, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahar Yad Brahmano Vidu. The total duration of the 4 yugas is 4.3 million years. And when that is multiplied 1,000 times, it equals 12 hours in the life of Brahma. Therefore, we cannot factually comprehend even 12 hours of Brahma's life, to say nothing of the 100 years that constitute his entire lifetime. How then can we understand his abode? The Vedic literatures describe that in Satyaloka there is no birth, death, old age or disease. In other words, since Satyalok is situated next to Brahmalok or the Brahman effulgence, it is almost as good as Vaikuntha-lok. Lord Brahma's abode is practically indescribable from our present status. Therefore it has been described as Avan Manasagochara, or beyond the description of our words and the imagination of our minds. The Vedic literatures thus describe the abode of Lord Brahma, Yadvai Parardhyam Tad Uparamaistyam na yatra shoka na jara na mrityur nartir na chodvega. In Satyaloka, which is situated many millions and billions of years away, there is no lamentation, nor is there old age, death, anxiety, or the influence of enemies. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So here we're continuing the story. Priyavrata and Narada were not disturbed. They were not disappointed that their plan had been frustrated. Oftentimes we have a plan and then Krishna derails our plan, or Krishna's representatives derail our plan. And the art of life is never to be disturbed or disappointed when that happens. Because they say if you want to make Krishna laugh, then tell him your plans. Because Krishna has a better plan. Krishna's devotees have a better plan. They have a broader vision and they have a deeper understanding of what will be better. And therefore it's said that the instructions of the spiritual master are very, very special, because there are different qualities of the instructions of the spiritual master, but one of them is that the instructions of the spiritual master are sometimes inconceivable. And therefore a spiritual authority within your life may tell you to do something that for you seems to be very difficult, or you can't make sense of it. Yet the disciple knows that there must be something to it. There must be some bigger plan. When the Lord arranges something in our life and it doesn't go according to our estimation, we must understand there is always a bigger plan. And so the devotee, rather than getting frustrated that their plan didn't work out, they get excited about understanding what is the bigger plan here. That's the difference. So for example, Parikshit was managing the universe, managing an empire, and then he got cursed to die in 7 days. And someone may say, but he was doing such amazing service. He was practically holding off the effects of Kali Yuga. He was doing such an incredible service, and now the Lord just derailed his service. But what happened is that the Lord had a plan for him to do a bigger service. A bigger service? What could be bigger than managing the whole empire? Well, the Lord did have a plan, because he had a bigger service, which was to be an instrument in bringing the Bhagavatam about in the world, which would then maintain not just the present empire, but would maintain generations to come. A bigger service, a bigger plan. So there's always a bigger plan. In London, at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, there was a big obstacle from the villagers of the manor who wanted to close the whole temple down. So at that time many devotees became bewildered that what is the plan of the Lord here? Like, here we are, they're going to close down the temple. So there was a huge legal fight, there were demonstrations, there were so many things, there was media coverage. And the net result of the whole opposition of the villagers to close down the temple is that the temple became 100 times more popular. Oh no, we should have just left them like they were. All that media exposure, all the court cases, all the thousands of people that began campaigning on behalf of the temple, and all the extra land that would needed to be bought in order to buy one road to circumvent the village, was all part of Krishna's plan to increase the service. Right. Srivas Thakur was wrongly accused. They put the Gopal Chapal, put the items of worship in front of his house, indicating or trying to convince everyone that actually he was eating meat, he was doing tantra and all kinds of other rituals. And what did Srivas Thakur do? He didn't even try to defend himself. He just said, yeah, well, this is who I am. But the whole village understood that, no, he's a saintly person, he can't do this. And the fact that he didn't try to defend himself meant that his glory, his fame as a devotee increased tenfold. So Gopal Chapal here had tried to come in to defame the devotee, And by the whole arrangement of the Lord, the devotee became 10 times more glorified. Here Priyavrata is thinking, I'm leaving my brahmacharya. I don't want to take on the responsibility. My whole spiritual absorption will be disturbed. But the Lord has a bigger plan, because the Lord is going to lead him into a service in which he'll be able to do so many amazing things that will actually increase his devotion and increase his spiritual position. And how is the Lord doing that? By encouraging him to take responsibility. Prabhupada writes in the very first line of the purport, Manu was certainly very satisfied that Lord Brahma had persuaded his son Priyavrata to take responsibility for ruling the world. So this is such an important part of spiritual life, that one who wants to advance, one who wants to progress, must take responsibility. To serve is nice, but a deepening of that service attitude is when you take responsibility. To serve means you make a contribution, but to take responsibility means you take the final weight on your shoulders to make sure that it happens. And that deepening of the service attitude is what actually attracts Krishna's attention. And therefore, those who take responsibility in their spiritual journey, those who take responsibility for some part of the Lord's work, those who take responsibility for fulfilling the desires of Srila Prabhupada in any way, it may be small, seemingly small, or it may be seemingly big. Whatever it is, one who takes responsibility, they are the ones who make advancement. But taking responsibility is not always something that we jump at. Because the moment you take responsibility, things begin happening in your life. When you take responsibility for something in your life, the first thing that will happen is there will be complexity. Life almost becomes very, very complex overnight, because now you have to make sure it happens, and that means you have to step in, that means you have to work overtime, that means you have to go above and beyond the call of duty, that means you have to solve other people's mistakes, that means if something comes up, then you have to be on call and ready to answer. And therefore, responsibility means you have to deepen your service attitude, because it becomes more difficult, it becomes more complex, it requires more time and energy, and unless you deepen your service attitude, you won't be able to do it. Responsibility is also very difficult, or responsibility is something we try to keep a distance from, because with responsibility comes also animosity. You become the object of criticism. You become the object of people pointing out faults. You become the object of people venting all their frustrations towards you. And therefore it requires a deepening of service attitude, because oftentimes people misjudge you. Oftentimes people will misinterpret your motivations. Oftentimes people will have misconceptions about what you're actually trying to do. And therefore, one has to have a very, very deep service attitude, because you may have the best of intentions when you take responsibility for something, but people may accuse you of other things. And therefore one has to have a very deep service attitude, otherwise one will think, why am I doing this? When you take responsibility, sometimes you may get criticized, but the other complexity of responsibility is that you become a celebrity. That's another problem. Because actually a devotee doesn't want to be in the limelight. Actually a devotee doesn't want attention. Actually a devotee knows that fame, accolade, appreciation is so intoxicating that it can actually divert one away from the path of pure devotional service. And therefore, a devotee is always trying to run away from that. I want to be more humble than a blade of grass. I want to be insignificant. I want to offer all respect to others and expect nothing for myself. And then the moment you take responsibility, the moment you have a position, you get all of those things. And therefore it's a burden for a devotee. Because they realize, I'm so weak, I can just become diverted by all of this again. So for these reasons, when it comes to responsibility, people usually run a mile. Let someone else do it. Apparently, I've never read it anywhere, but I've heard devotees quote it in the class. They said once Srila Prabhupada wanted to convince someone to become a temple president. So, on another occasion, someone had asked Prabhupada, what's the definition of a temple president, the service description? Prabhupada said, if something goes wrong, it's your fault. That's the service description of a temple president, in case you were wondering. You can hold Damodar Prasad Prabhu to his service description. So see, Prabhupada wanted to convince one newly married grihastha to become a temple president. So he knew there was going to be resistance here because, So Prabhupada said to the servant, call him to the room. Prabhupada wants to see you. Oh my God, Prabhupada wants to see me. He's going to drop a bombshell. I wonder what he's going to tell me to do. He's going to take me to take responsibility. So he came into the room. So Prabhupada said, yes, so you are doing very nice service. It is nice to take responsibility. So he was thinking, oh my God, what's it going to be? So Prabhupada said, so I see you are married and I want you to take sannyas. I said, sannyas? This was like way beyond my conception of responsibility. Sannyas. He said he had left his body and his subtle body was circumambulating the chandelier, it's like, And then after that initial shock, Prabhupada said to him, okay, don't worry. If you don't want to take sannyas, it's okay. Then become temple. Oh, temple president, I'll do anything. Anything you want, Prabhupada, not sannyas. Krishna Bhakta Bodho Jatu. Krishna's devotee is very intelligent how to get things done. So nobody wants to take because there's so much. When you take responsibility, there's so much anxiety, complexity. But now let me ask you, all of you, here Priyavrata is taking the responsibility and we know that that is a very difficult thing, but why do you think taking responsibility for Srila Prabhupada's mission or for Krishna's service, what gifts does that give you? Why is it such a powerful thing to do in your spiritual journey? How does it actually help you to get closer to Krishna? Yes.
You probably face situations where you call out for Krishna sincerely, and it brings it further and progress.
Yes, that's a very good point. Yeah, I remember years ago we were at the maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we were doing the GBC college, and Devamita Maharaj was giving a class, and someone put their hand up and said, "What is the best service for a devotee?" And Maharaj said, the best service is the one that forces you to cry out to Krishna for help. So yes, that service which causes us to become dependent, that service which helps us to realize, I'm not the doer, I need empowerment, I need blessings. That service is actually the best service because it connects us more deeply to Krishna. And so taking responsibility definitely causes one to very much rely on Krishna, which helps one to become very, very Krishna conscious. Yes, thank you. Why else do you think responsibility is so beneficial for your spiritual journey? Yes.
Concentration, you gotta be concentrated and be stable, mind.
Yeah, when you're doing a service, and you're not responsible, you can switch on and you can switch off, and you can be on call, and you can say, put your sign up on your door, do not disturb. But when you're responsible for something, it's just, you're on call, you have to be focused all the time. You know, it's like, once I remember I was in the Brahmachari ashram, I was taking a shower, and someone came to the shower, I said, Prabhu, this problem is there. I'm like, I'm taking a shower. So I said, I'm taking a shower. They said, yeah, I don't mind, we can still talk. I said, okay. I mean, you don't mind. Maybe I mind. No, you have to be available. You have to be on call. But that's very good, because Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana, to be focused all the time, to always be thinking. Otherwise, the idle mind is a devil's workshop. So that level of focus that is required when you take responsibility is also hugely beneficial to one's absorption. Yes?
Because you're doing Krishna and Prabhupada's work, they personally intervene in your life to help you in that service?
Yes, taking responsibility to do what the Lord wants to achieve in the world means you attract their attention, you attract their participation, you attract their empowerment. A deepening of service attitude means not to ask the Lord what He can do for us, but to ask, to offer, what can we do for you? Therefore, Haridas Thakur comes to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he says, Chinta na kariha. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says to the whole world, Ma sucha, you don't worry, you don't be in anxiety, you don't fear anything. But in this case, the devotee is coming to the Lord and saying, Chinta na kariha, oh my Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you don't be in anxiety, you don't fear, you don't worry about anything. We will fulfill your desires to help all the souls in this world. And when the Lord has the responsibility of relieving everyone's anxiety, but when the devotee says, okay, I'll take on some anxiety to relieve yours, then that attracts. In the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam, we find the story of Shiva, and Shiva in the churning of the milk ocean, and he decides to take responsibility for ingesting that poison to protect the universe. And there's a very beautiful verse. Tapyante lokatapena sadhavo prayasojana paramaradhanam tadhi purushasya khilatmanaha. Tapyante lokatapena. Tapa means suffering. Tapyante lokatapena, one who takes on suffering to relieve the suffering of the people in general. Param aradhanam dadhi. There is no higher way to worship the Lord than this. If you take on a burden to reduce the burden of others, there's no higher way to worship the Lord than this. This is what all the saintly people do. So yeah, for sure, when one takes responsibility, there's a sense in which the Lord becomes more and more active and empowering in one's life. Thank you. Yes?
It's a wonderful way to cultivate humility.
It's a wonderful way to cultivate humility, because people don't listen to you. And because it doesn't always go the way it is. And you realize that we have to carry ourselves in a certain way. We have to have a certain quality of our own character. Otherwise, people will not be inspired. People will not be motivated to follow us. And so one must become humble. The ones in the most powerful positions who are trying to lead others must also be very, very humble in order to do their service, and in order to maintain also their own consciousness while doing their service. Is that what you meant by humility? Yeah. Yes?
I thought also about using time like better, more properly, because due to all the other obligations, one has to concentrate better in the Krishna consciousness and not waste time. So.
Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki.
So I think something along these lines about not wasting time.
Yeah, it makes you more conscious about how you use your time, and yeah, because you have so many more responsibilities, you have so many more things to do. So, like here we were saying, it just makes you so much more focused. Yeah, very good. Yes.
Maturity.
Maturity. What do you mean by that? Can you say more?
I guess, yeah, maturity in various aspects, like emotional maturity, spiritual maturity, how to deal with people.
Yes. Yes, you have to become more mature. When you're responsible for something, then you have to rise to a higher level. You have to become more wise. You have to be able to understand deeper solutions to problems. This is how you actually, in one sense, we say the Bhagavatam gives us many lessons of life, but oftentimes we learn those lessons in the real world. When we're interacting, when we're forced to actually bring this knowledge into the world, and therefore we mature in the way we deal with people, we mature in our understanding of Shastra. And therefore you find the sadhus have a combination of three things. The saintly people have a combination of three things we can say which make their words incredibly powerful. The first thing is that they know Shastra. But the second thing is that they have great life experience. And the third thing is that they've made great sacrifices in their life. So if you meet someone who knows Shastra, but at the same time has much life experience, and on top of that has performed many services by which they've drawn the mercy of Krishna, then when they speak, when they express themselves, there's an extra special potency, because there's a maturity which doesn't just come from book knowledge. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
When you take responsibility, you get a chance to be sold out to Srila Prabhupada with the devotees to Krishna.
Yeah, can you say in what sense you get a chance to be sold out?
Because our entire purpose then is concentrating on furthering the mission and how we can then further Srila Prabhupada's goals. And then our meditation is entirely surrounding that. And then our sadhana, etc. We want to also be better versions of ourselves,
Yeah.
so that we can be proper servants.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes.
Responsibility gives us the opportunity to recognize and realize that we are not the doer.
Yes. When you take responsibility for something, you may have a plan, an idea of in what direction and how it should transpire, and very quickly you realize it doesn't work. And then even if it does work,
you recognize that it's not me who's doing it.
Oh,
it's
yes.
the other devotees who are helping you.
oh yes. Yes, it helps you to have a broader vision of how the Lord is involved, but also how the devotees are involved in actually manifesting that thing. And one realizes, I can't take credit, I can't take the appreciation, the soul appreciation for this. One has a broader vision of what it actually requires to manifest anything for Krishna. So like this, responsibility is extremely powerful. Perhaps one of Srila Prabhupada's geniuses as he created this movement was that he gave everyone the chance to take responsibility. Srila Prabhupada, he didn't wait devotees would just be very, very young in the movement, and Srila Prabhupada would give them responsibility. I think His Holiness Hridayananda Maharaj says when when he was, I think, 20 or 21, Srila Prabhupada said, okay, and you will be GBC for South America. Of course, there was nothing in South America at that time. Okay, I'll be GBC for South America. And he actually explains, he says he took a flight into Rio de Janeiro airport. And he said he arrived at the airport, and the first thing he did was he went to the shop and he bought a map of South America. And then he said he got to the room where he was staying, and he said he put it on the wall, and he started putting pins in the map. And he said, we'll have a temple here, and a temple here, a temple here. So it's incredible. The devotees just, Srila Prabhupada gave them the responsibility. Prabhupada wrote back to Godhead, and then immediately, very, very early, he said, one article my spiritual master, one article me, and one article one of you. So he brought his disciples up to that point of being published alongside Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, giving them the opportunity to take responsibility. So it's really a movement which is based on taking responsibility. And here Priyavrata really just takes that responsibility. He needed some encouragement, as we all do. But when that encouragement came, then he fully gave himself to it. And as we'll read in the coming verses, when he did take up that responsibility, then he did an incredible service which helped generations to come. And so maybe this is one meditation we can take as we hear about how Priyavrata and Narada, they were not frustrated that their idea was overturned. They embraced it. They took the order of their superior. Understanding instructions always have a bigger future, and they took the responsibility. And those who take responsibility for Krishna in some way, small or big, in one sense, in this movement, nothing is small, because in Krishna's eyes everything is big. And in another sense, in this movement, nothing is big, because Krishna can do everything himself if he wanted to anyway. So whose responsibility is small and whose responsibility is big, that's really a relative consideration. But the point is, we can all take some responsibility for Srila Prabhupada's movement, and in that way benefit in our lives, just as Priyavrata had benefited. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. If anyone has any questions or comments or anything more you would like to explore on this theme, then we can have some discussion. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I had a question about responsibility. That we see so many from the history of our acharyas, for example, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur and even Srila Prabhupada. They prepared a lot actually before taking up responsibility. So there was so much preparation and so much deeply going into the significance of the holy name, and really strengthening their relationship with the Lord. And I feel on a personal level that sometimes I know that I haven't done that groundwork, but still responsibility comes. And then sometimes you're thrown into it, and sometimes you just accept it because you know how purifying it is. But then where to go from here? And I can see, yes, gradually I am trying also to have that meditation and work on myself. But then I'm always quite scared that I don't have the groundwork. So if you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah. It's often said that the qualification of someone to do a service is that they think they're not qualified to do it. If one thinks they are qualified, if one thinks they are ready, then that sometimes could also be an impediment in itself. But yes, you're right. Definitely some preparation is required. Sometimes there may be an emergency situation, sometimes there may be a need. And therefore, then we realize that the quality of mercy, the quality of empowerment will come in to make up for my lack of preparation, because there's a need and I'm trying to serve. And therefore devotees sometimes step into positions which they don't feel qualified for, they don't feel they've prepared for. But then in those situations they know that Yoga Kshemam Vahami Aham. Yes, Krishna will preserve what I have and He'll carry what I lack. He'll come in where I feel I haven't prepared enough. And then what the devotee does is within that service, then they make time to deepen themselves so that they can do that service in a better way. So that aspect is always there. But yes, we should always be preparing. One thing is, we don't need to prepare once we know. We shouldn't just start preparing once we know that this is what I'm going to do. We should be preparing from now, because our whole life is about service. So we should be preparing ourselves that in the future there will be bigger and bigger responsibilities which will come. And well, there's a story of Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. He was initiated by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in 1926. In 1936, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left the world. And he was very much appreciated amongst his god brothers, and therefore many were asking him to take on the position of being a guru. But he was very, very reluctant to do that, feeling himself unqualified, that how can I take on the position of being a spiritual master? Then he said multiple things happened which convinced him that he should do this service. He said one time he was reading the story of a Brahmana, the Brahmana who had much knowledge but who never gave that knowledge to others. And what happened is that in the next life, that Brahmana became a mango tree. It became a mango tree that gave, that bore many, many sweet mango fruits, but not one bird, not one person came to that tree to take any of those fruits. And it was mentioned here in this story. He was reading it somewhere. It was a commentary. The commentary on the story said there is something called, I think it's called Vita Satya. Vita Satya means when you have wealth, but you don't spend it to benefit others. And then there is something called Jnana Satya, which is when you have knowledge, when you have something but you don't use it to help others. So he said he read this and then it began making him think more deeply. And then he said, I considered to myself that they're asking me to become a guru and I have a hesitation. But he said, in one sense, ultimately none of us, he was saying, are omniscient. Yet, if one knows something about medicine, then they become a doctor. Because with whatever knowledge they have, they can still help someone. So if a doctor is waiting to become omniscient before he begins practicing, then that will never happen. So with whatever knowledge he has, he should try to help. And so like this, he said, through many reflections and contemplations, and he realized that, no, I should take up the responsibility even though I don't feel myself to be qualified like that. So yes, many times we have to do things beyond seemingly our capacity or our preparation. But if there's a need, then we must understand that Krishna will carry what we lack. So, some thoughts.
So in a work situation, I'm probably very not nervous or confident to do my role. But as soon as you ask me to do something in Krishna consciousness or have a responsibility, I get quite weak at the legs. And I feel like I get really nervous. So how can one manage that? I mean, I end up doing the service, but before that I'm like, oh my God, I've got to do it really well.
And
I've got to
what
do
is
really
it? What is
properly.
it that makes you nervous? What is it in the spiritual scenario?
I think it's more the fact that what if I don't do it properly? Or what if I upset someone? Or what if I create an offense? Or, I mean, I've never done this before. You know, how do I do it? And then I kind of have to talk to myself and be like, it's okay, Anita, you can do it, you know. But in a work situation, confidently I can carry out my tasks. But when it comes to service, sometimes I kind of get a little bit nervous. And then I'll weak at the legs, and then I have to kind of sort myself out.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, so sometimes we can do some things in the material world, but when we're in the spiritual setting, then we feel more nervous. There are devotees, there are higher standards, there's spiritual purity that we don't want to violate. So many things make us more nervous about taking up responsibility. In the midst of that, we can also remember that behind it all is Krishna. Krishna is watching, Krishna is empowering, Krishna is seeing your endeavor, Krishna is within your heart, and He knows that you're trying the best you can. And so that's the saving grace when we feel unqualified, when we feel nervous, when we don't want to make a mistake. The saving grace is we can go in front of Krishna and we can say, it's your service, the devotees have asked me to do it, and I'm trying to do the best I can. And Krishna, you can't ask anything more of me than that. I'm just trying the best I can. And therefore, that's ultimately what Krishna will reciprocate with. So in the scripture there's this very beautiful verse, Murkho vaditi vishnaya dhiro vaditi vishnave ubhayor tu samam punyam bhavagrahi janardana. That if one is very elementary in their understanding of Sanskrit, then they may say Vishnaya, Murkho vaditi Vishnaya. Vishnaya is wrong. Dhiro vadati Vishnave. The actual right expression is Vishnave. But ubayor tu samam punyam. Both, if they have an intention, if they have the right mood and the right desire to serve, ubayor tu samam punyam, they get the same benefit. Bhavagrahi janardana. Because Krishna looks at your endeavor, Krishna looks at your intention. And so sometimes we get very nervous because we think we'll do something wrong. But this verse tells us that the ultimate thing that makes it right is your intention. And so that gives the devotee the confidence to still do things. Okay. Yes.
Just on the theme of Srila Prabhupada giving surprising responsibility, you told of the householder take sannyas. No, okay, be temple president. I was thinking of the experience of Tamal Krishna Goswami when he had been in charge of the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party in America, but it had become clear that it was time for him to change his service for various reasons, and he was speaking with Srila Prabhupada, what should I do now? What should I do? Maybe I should just go to China. And Prabhupada was silent. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, no, Prabhupada, I didn't mean that, I didn't mean it. I was just joking. And Prabhupada said, Vaishnavas don't joke. And so it ended up, he went to China and and did glorious service as a result.
you mentioned before Krishna's plan. So I'm trying to surrender to Krishna's plan and look for it everywhere and follow that direction. But sometimes, obviously, my own desires can get in the way, or some choices come up, and they both seem like they could be Krishna's plan, but I just don't know how far in the future to look, and I can't predict everything. So anyway, the question is basically, how do you see Krishna's plan and know it's his plan and not your own desires?
So how do we actually figure out Krishna's plan? After the battle of Kurukshetra, then Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, they go to see Bhishma Dev, who's on the bed of arrows. And Bhishma Dev looks at the Pandavas, particularly at Yudhishthira, and he's contemplating everything that they had to go through in their life. He's thinking like the Pandavas had all dharma, they had all piety, they had all strength, they had Krishna as their constant companion, yet they had to go through all these things. And then Bhishma Dev says, Na hyasya karhichit papan puman veda viditsitam yad vijigyasaya yukta muyanti kavayopihi. He said, if someone tries to understand the plan of Krishna, muyanti, he will just become completely bewildered. No one can understand the plan of Krishna. So in one sense, to fully decipher the plan of Krishna and where it's going and what Krishna is planning is very, very difficult. Yet we have to make decisions. So how do we make those decisions? Therefore it's said that if you want to understand the words of God, if you want to understand the will of God, then try to embrace the words of a devotee. The will of God is translated in our life through the words of a devotee. To follow the will of God by ourselves is we will cherry pick, because we will say, yeah, I think Krishna wants me to do this, and it just happens to be the easier option. But when a word of a devotee is like, it's very direct, it tells you this. Therefore, it's said that the Lord manifests His plans through those individuals who we accept in our heart as the representatives of the Lord. And they help us to decipher in any given situation where we should be going. But then, what do we do? At every moment, those devotees are not there. It's like you're in the prasadam queue and you could take 2 or 3 chapati, and it's like, what? Guru Maharaj, what should I do? And therefore, gradually, by connecting with that devotee, through whom you very much understand how Krishna is acting in your life, through sustained interaction with the representative of the Lord, one can actually begin to understand and connect more deeply with the voice of the Lord within. And one can then actually become much, much more attuned in every situation to move in a direction which they feel the Lord is wanting them to go into. And so, firstly, having those instructions from a representative, and then very much through that sustained interaction with a representative, one actually begins to understand in what way the Lord wants me to move in any given situation. And then ultimately, yes, when one becomes even more established, then one hears the voice of the message within. Prabhupada says that when he talks about this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam. If you search that verse on Vedabase, every time Prabhupada, or many times when Prabhupada cites that verse, he says, yes, Krishna will tell you, do like this, do like this, do like this. Krishna will actually tell you, do like this, when one has connected with the voice within. So some thoughts. Okay, see many, maybe Damodar Prasad.
Thank you, Maharaj. In our ISKCON history, see how there were many leaders, and externally could look, wow, they're super successful. They're having many followers, a lot of preaching going on, but then we also saw how many of them, they're not here anymore. So how can we who take up responsibility can check if we are actually on the right track?
Perhaps one of the ironies of our spiritual journey is that the times when we increase our responsibility are usually the times when we decrease our absorption. Which is ironic, because the time when you take up responsibility is the time when you need to increase your absorption in the spiritual energy. Devamita Maharaj once, he also said that people left Krishna consciousness not because they took on too much service, but because they didn't absorb themselves spiritually enough to match it. And to, therefore, again, we recently did a session with the devotees on the GBC college, and the topic was absorption. And we basically talked about three things: that as a leader, if you want to protect yourself, you have to be absorbed. More than that, as a leader, if you want to empower yourself, you have to be absorbed. And more than that, as a leader, if you really want to find yourself, you have to be absorbed. Protect yourself means without absorption in the spiritual energy, everything will just become a big burden on one's shoulders, and one won't be able to manage it. And therefore one must be, Prabhupada says that in one letter. He says to one devotee, if there's not sufficient hearing and chanting, then eventually all of your service will become like a big burden. But beyond protecting ourselves, through absorption, what you do is you empower yourself. To actually do your service, when you take responsibility and become a leader, you have to be inspired. The one quality that qualifies you and empowers you as a leader is your own inspiration and enthusiasm. And that comes from your own engagement with the spiritual energy. But even beyond that, absorption is what helps you to find yourself. Because sometimes what happens is when you take on a responsibility or a position of leadership, we begin to identify so deeply with that position that we lose sight of our real identity. So we're not any of the designations. Naham Vipro, Nacha Narapati, Napi Vaishyo, Nasudro. We're not any of these external designations. We're actually eternal servants of Krishna. And so through absorption, although you act in your role of responsibility, you always remain awake to your identity beyond that role. And that gives you the sustainability to continue. So, yeah, without absorption, you can't protect yourself. Without absorption, you can't empower yourself as a leader. And without absorption, you can't really find yourself beyond the temporary position that you're taking. And therefore, absorption is absolutely necessary.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for inspiring us. Could you say something about how is it, or what are the ways that sacrifice brings purity of heart? It's something that also came up in my mind yesterday when you were speaking about resisting temptation, today about responsibility, but mostly in terms of deepening our own spiritual realization through sacrifice.
Yeah, why is sacrifice so powerful? And why is sacrifice so purifying? Well, to quote a legendary person here in Zurich, Harinamananda Prabhu, who was a illustrious book distributor, and once they asked him, like, how are you able to distribute so many books on the street? How hundreds and hundreds of books to people? And his answer was, all day I'm just trying to get out of the way. I'm just trying to get out of the way and just let Krishna do it. I'm just trying to take myself out of the center. I'm trying to take out all the self-absorption. I'm trying to take out this sense of I can do it or I can't do it, because I'm not doing anything. Krishna is doing it. And so sacrifice is so powerful, because sacrifice is an act in which we take ourselves out of the center. When you make a sacrifice, then basically you're taking your own consideration, you're taking your own self-absorption out of the center, and what you're doing is you're putting Krishna in the center. And the moment that we bring Krishna more and more into the center is the moment where we just become more and more in the role of instruments, as we should be. So that's the purpose of a sacrifice or a yagya. Yagyartat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. That work has to be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise that work causes bondage. Because we are, without that sacrifice of offering it to the Lord and taking ourselves out of the center, we again become the center of a karmic network, absorbed in material consciousness. So, yeah. The opportunity to make a sacrifice is the opportunity to take yourself out of the center. And the opportunity to take yourself out of the center and bring Krishna into the center is then the opportunity to act in perfect alignment with your identity, by which you can then, like Prabhupada says, make me dance, make me dance, make me dance as you wish. Some thoughts. When should we stop? Tonight. Yes.
We've had quite a bit of discussion.
We've had quite a bit of discussion about the will of God, the will of Krishna, and how ultimately, no matter what we do, Krishna's plan prevails. So, with that, my understanding of pure love for Krishna means that no matter what happens, Krishna may hurt me, Krishna may deceive me, but Krishna is my Lord and Master. So, but with that, it's something that, for pure love to work, it's something I choose to do. But if ultimately it's Krishna's plan that's prevailing, it almost seems like no matter what, we have to like turn towards Him. And it's almost as if, like, you know, in life sometimes you're going to do something anyway, but then someone tells you to do it, and I'm like, well, now I don't want to do it. So how does this kind of work, where it's ultimately, yes, Krishna's will, and we have to love Krishna, and pure love means no matter what, right? But we have also seemingly no choice but that.
Okay. This is very interesting. Can you summarize it again? Like, so let me see let me try and repeat it back. So, you're saying Krishna sends things in our life, the good, the bad, and the seemingly ugly, and we're meant to embrace it. Like, yes, this is Krishna. I love you, Krishna. I hate this, but I love you. And so it almost to you seems like we're just taught to do that, to accept everything that Krishna sends and be appreciative and touched by it. But to you that doesn't seem like love, because love is a choice that you're making. Is that kind of like a summary? Of
yeah, in a sense, because so Krishna's will prevails, and then we have choice, right? But if really we have no choice, then how is it like, okay, how do we convince ourselves, okay, no, this is it, that Krishna is my Lord and Master?
Maharaj, do you have any thoughts on this topic?
Well, one thought comes to mind. Srila Prabhupada in one lecture, he's speaking about Krishna's statement in the Gita, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanamagmang Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Samahatma Sudurlava. Krishna's saying that the person who understands that Vasudeva is everything understands that after many lifetimes, and that person is very rare. So Prabhupada is saying, what Krishna is saying is, you can save yourself a lot of trouble. Instead of going through so many lives to understand that Vasudeva is everything, here's Krishna telling you, Vasudeva is everything, so why not just accept? So, I think that may help to get at what you're saying. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Just to add on, I think, like, if you think about someone you really kind of, or someone you kind of love in your life, then what often happens is that they may do something which is inexplicable to you. Like, you may not understand, like, why are they doing that? Like, I don't get it. But when you see them doing things that are even not understandable to you, the first thing that doesn't come to your mind is doubt. That doesn't come to your mind because of the loving relationship. The first thing that comes to your mind is, this is the best for me. I don't really know how, but I can't imagine anything else because I just love this person. And so I think embracing Krishna in everything he does in your life is not an intellectual thing. Embracing Krishna in whatever he sends in your life is very much a heartfelt thing, which comes automatically in your consciousness because of sustained and repeated and numerous occasions when you've always been able to see that Krishna has been doing the best for you. So therefore you can't understand Krishna, but you can stand under Krishna. You can't understand Krishna, but you can stand under Krishna. And why do you stand under Krishna? Because you take shelter, because you have that confidence that in so many other situations he's always been there, it's always worked out, he's never let me down. And therefore there's no sense of doubt. And it's not that you're intellectually forcing yourself. You just, because of so many times when you've seen Krishna he's been there, then you just automatically take shelter. I don't know if this is getting to you, and if this is helping in some way. Yeah.
Isn't it true that our whole purpose of our bhakti is to try and believe in Krishna as well, right? Like, I don't think many of us actually believe fully that, Krishna is always there. I don't know, it's connecting to what he's saying, right? It's like...
Yeah, no, definitely.
Right.
Tribhuvanath Prabhu tells a story. He was walking with Srila Prabhupada in Russell Square. I always remember this story because I studied at UCL and Russell Square was right there, so I used to chant my japa there, and I used to remember this story. And Prabhupada was walking with all his sannyasis, senior devotees, leaders. So on this particular morning walk, Prabhupada was he was doing japa, he wasn't really speaking. And then at one point, Prabhupada just stopped, And so everyone kind of just like stopped Prabhupada, and he did the characteristic cane in the in the ground, and then Prabhupada looked at everyone and said, "There's only one problem." I was thinking like, I hope it's not me. There's only one problem. And Prabhupada looked at them and said, you don't believe Krishna exists? So Prabhupada opened up that opportunity that you could dedicate your life to Krishna, you could give everything, you could spend your whole day serving Krishna and not really believe in Krishna. And so it was almost like a shock for the devotees. They were like, of course we believe in Krishna. Like, why would we do all this if we didn't believe in Krishna? But do we actually have that, you know? So yes, to believe in Krishna. When I first came to the temple and started speaking to devotees, I once said to a devotee, I said, I don't know if I believe in Krishna. So what he said to me, he said, we're not trying to make you believe in Krishna. I was like, okay, so what are you trying to do then? He said, we're not trying to make you believe in Krishna. He said, we're giving you the tools, practices and processes by which you can perceive the presence of Krishna at every moment in your life. So he was saying it's not about even belief. He said, belief, that's kids' play. What we're trying to do is we're trying to equip you to perceive the presence of Krishna. So yes, that is something. And yeah, just to quote another story from London, Kishore Prabhu was in Berry Place and Prabhupada was giving a lecture, and then right in the middle of the lecture someone just stood up, like very kind of, you know, newcomer, and he said, and he looked straight at Prabhupada and he said, can you see Krishna? So Prabhupada looked straight back at him and said, yeah. Can you not see Krishna? And he said, no. And then Kishore Prabhu said, Prabhupada looked very penetratingly at him and said, do you want to see Krishna? And so like everyone was looking at him, and so then he kind of put his head down and he said, no. And Prabhupada said, therefore you cannot see Krishna. That was also, I thought, that's very profound, you know, like, do you really want to see Krishna? That's what it comes down to. To quote a famous song, I really want to see you. So yes, to believe in Krishna, but not just believe, to really experience, yeah. Okay, maybe ask someone who hasn't asked.
This is unrelated to the topic, but my question is, how do you stay enthusiastic throughout your life, like enthusiastic to serve and like to associate with devotees and like get your japa done? Because a lot of times I have like waves of enthusiasm. I'm like, this is all I want to do, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do service. I don't want to wash dishes, something like that. So how do I stay consistent with wanting to do that?
Yeah, how do you stay enthusiastic? If you go to Mumbai, one thing you have to do, apart from obviously go to all our temples, and is go on the Mumbai trains. Mumbai trains are packed. So like you go on these Mumbai trains, it's crazy, you know, it's like it's overloaded, and you know, like 10 people are like convinced that there's room for another 15 more, you know, like it's just like very, if you like your personal space, don't go there. But it's very interesting, they say on the Mumbai train, it's like if you're on this packed train and you're coming to the station and you need to get out, Like, how do you get out? There's all these people around you. So what you have to do is you have to maneuver yourself right in just the right place in the train. And then what happens is, as soon as it comes to the station, then everyone starts moving. And you know what? You don't even have to walk. Because the crowd will just carry you out of the train. If you maneuver yourself into the right place, it's just like, whoosh, out of the train. So the lesson is that if you, Prabhupada actually says in one, either in a lecture or in a Bhagavatam purport, he says the association of devotees is so powerful that one will be forcibly dragged to success. Forcibly dragged to success. When I read that or heard that, I thought of the Mumbai trains. So I think probably the most practical and pragmatic solution is just to be around inspired people, like just to surround yourself and stay in contact with people who just really have that hunger, that enthusiasm, that drive, people who are really moving forward in their spiritual life. Association is everything. And yeah, that energy that's generated within a powerful sangha, and that carries you. So that could maybe be one practice. Thank you. Alright, I think we are over time. Thank you so much for your attention. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki
Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj ki jai. Soulness Krishna Kshetra Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I really like your you finished that, right? Yeah. So we do it after? You can do it now. We should at least end it. I mean, I don't think that's that bad. I want to see the city. I'm excited. Yes. How do you pronounce it in German? Zurich.
It's interesting that it's to think that I can do something and to think that I can't do it. In one sense, both exhibitions of false ego, because like I mentioned, so therefore Prabhupada even said impossible is a word in the Fool's Dictionary, because a fool thinks that I have this much capacity and this is beyond my capacity. We have zero capacity, but when we become an instrument, then we become able to do things. For example, I'll give you a practical example. Very introverted. But now, 25 years later, that becomes what I do every single day. What gave me the confidence to do it? Because I realized it's not me, it's just I'm not doing it's not my knowledge. The abilities that I have to deliver that knowledge are not coming from me. Just try to, with whatever I've been given, just utilize it proficiently. One important thing to become confident is this, to not be affected by results. I think just before you guys arrived, I did a seminar, I did a talk here on failure. And how fear of failure is what holds us back so much in our life. Actually, in one sense, failure is not possible in Krishna consciousness. If you try your best, whether something works out like how you want it to work or not, it's all a success because Krishna saw your works. Some of these things have helped me to be more confident in just trying to serve. And just sometimes I have no problem just say this is not me, this is I've taken whatever I feel and sort of trying to fix something. I was doing it or it was like I just and then once I actually so I found that myself like important these seductions. I mean the seduction is to Krishna. And in those moments then I feel like I have to praise this person. I guess that's supposed to be. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Sean, so I just came to see Sean. I wanted to arrange for a pickup, and he said, I think March arranged for not pickup, transfer to the kitchen. So I thought it probably was
He wants to come on Monday with me. Is that going to be practical? That's not practical.
Because you have Tirupati or Shaman, and the car is not so big. So you'll be inconvenient.